So on a side hustle, I used to buy sneakers and sell them on eBay. My PayPal got hacked. Back then, I grew up not trusting banks, right? Like being in a household of drug dealers, everything is cash, right? So it's like my father always instilled, don't trust the banks. Cash your check, put it under your mattress, and this was the norm for me. I didn't want to carry always like a couple $100 on me. So I'm like, oh, I'll create a PayPal debit card. And then I had like $900, like I fell for a phishing. So I clicked on a link, they harvested my credentials, and then the Nigerian prince took my $900, which I thought I worked really hard for. And I was like, man, like how did this happen? That's what sparked my interest.
What's one misconception about cybersecurity that you find yourself addressing repeatedly with viewers?
Since you talked about something technical, I want to go into salary. And one thing, and I'm very honest, like I said in the beginning, like I don't like to mislead people. Something that was misled with them is like, oh, if you get out of this program in 6 months, you're going to make a buku bucks, $100,000 plus, right? So if you're working at Pasquale's Pizzeria yesterday, but today you got in this program in 6 months, you're not going to make $100,000.
So I'm going to shift to a cybersecurity landscape. We're seeing that professionals are spending a lot of time in the browser today. From your offensive security point of view, what makes browsers an attractive target?
Ooh, that's a good one. Cookies, sessions, that's probably the most attractive, right? Compromising the session. And yeah, that's pretty much what I go after. Right.
Yeah. So to kind of take control of identity.
Exactly. Well, like seeing if you could dump their passwords, if they're using, a lot of people use like Google's password manager, right? If we can dump that, we can get and you can use applications like Beef, and you can dump everything. And if we're able to dump that, it'll be a hooray for us.
Patrick Gorman, also known as InfosecPat to his 100,000 plus subscribers on YouTube, didn't start his journey from a comfortable place. Growing up in New York with limited resources, he found his way out through cybersecurity and education. Now, with nearly 2 decades in IT and cybersecurity under his belt, Pat has made his mission to make cybersecurity accessible to all. I'm looking forward to hearing his stories today. Welcome to the show, Pat.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'm super stoked, John. I'm really excited about this opportunity to be on with SquareX and tell about my story. Yes, and you are right. I come from a different kind of upbringing than your traditional nerd. But yeah, if you, whatever you want to talk about, I'm open. I'm an open book. I don't have any shame. I am where I am today because of that struggle. So
excellent. Yeah. So Patrick, you have been in security for almost 2 decades. Mm-hmm. Take us back to the beginning. What sparked your initial interest in security? And what was the catalyst for launching your YouTube channel 5 years ago?
Yeah, lovely question. So I'll bring it back. Like I haven't been in security for 20 years. It's been IT for 20 years. And then cyber. So I'll bring you back to my younger days, right? So it all makes sense. So yeah, I grew up in New York, Queens, New York. And I didn't have a very good upbringing, right? I'm very, very honest and very blunt. My mother was a heroin addict. My dad was in and out of prison. I was just, there, right? I just existed, to be honest. I had a lovely grandma. I had lovely uncles and aunts, but like my immediate family didn't give a crap, right? I'm lucky to be alive. So, I took it upon myself when I hit 17 years old. I lost my mother, then I lost my grandmother, and then I moved to Florida. And then from there, I thought the only way in the world was hands-on construction because that's what I saw. I didn't see any other kind of way. I seen welding, I seen painting on, floors, what is it, carpenter or whatever, electrician, plumber, blah, blah, blah. So I came to Florida, I finished high school, and I started working with my uncle as an electrician at 17. And I knew about a year and a half in, I didn't want to do this. I skateboarded as well. And I was like, I want to study multimedia design because I loved filming. I loved editing. I loved doing all that stuff back then because I wanted to be like this pro skater. And Lo and behold, I'm like, man, I need to move to like California. I'm not going to be making it in South Florida. So I had to change things up. I did bowl for, I still bowl, but I bowled for a long time. That was another thing. I talk about it, but I don't really bring it up. Sometimes I just forget about it. And I made a couple bucks bowling, and I got a scholarship from bowling, and then I ended up breaking my back. So when I broke my back, like it hindered that. Oh, I want to be a bowler, right? Because after like 2.5 games, 3 games, my back is killing me. And if you
Mm.
know about bowling, if you're bowling for a tournament, you're bowling maybe 9 to 12 games on a weekend, and I couldn't at 23 years old, and that's pretty bad, right? Um, so I was like, okay, cool deal, and I started working in IT when I was 20, 19 to be exact. And the way that happened, a year and a half later, after working as an electrician, I I said, Joe, my uncle, I was like, Joe, I don't really want to do this. And multimedia, I'm not going to really make much money unless I move to like California or back to New York. And I definitely didn't want to go back home, right? Like it was a nightmare back home. But and then I was like, and he's like, oh, I have a friend Jay. He works in IT. I'm like, all right, I can give that a shot. To be honest, I didn't think I was smart enough. When I first started, I'm like, this is going to be I'm not a nerd. Till to this day, I never played a video game in my life. I don't know how to play video games. I never got into really computers, like the nerdy side of that stuff. It's crazy to say, but it's the honest truth, right? Um, so I got as a bench tech, which was interesting because Jay was like, "Hey, like you're gonna install RAM." I used to be like, "Oh, that's pretty easy, right? I can install RAM. I can plug some cables in the IDE back then, right before there was SATA." And then I was like, "Oh, connecting computers." But I didn't have enough knowledge to install Windows yet, right? I just can like plug things in, and I just prep it and I push it down the bench, and then his name was Van. Van would do the installs and install not Black Hat, Red Hat, and like Windows Server 2000, and then we got into 2003 Server, etc. So that's what started my journey in IT, and then we could be here for hours, and then like going on, fast forward about 8 years later, about now I'm like 8 years in the game, and I did my network engineering, I did system engineering, I did virtualization, all the fun stuff that you do while you're moving up. And I thought that was going to be I loved that. Networking was probably my favorite still. I loved the routing and switching, I loved firewalls, network security. And then I'm skipping some stuff, like I was a big sneakerhead as well. So on a side hustle, I used to buy sneakers and sell them on eBay. And this happened about we were in 2025. Yes, 15 years ago now. 15, 16 years. I forgot exactly. But my PayPal got hacked. So back then, I grew up not trusting banks, right? Like being in a household of drug dealers, everything is cash, right? So it's like my father always instilled, don't trust the banks. Cash your check, put it under your mattress, and this was the norm for me, right? So I was like, all right, I needed to have some kind of like, I didn't want to carry always like a couple $100 on me. So I'm like, oh, I'll create a PayPal debit card, right? So PayPal was my bank for a little bit. And then I had like $900, like I fell for a phishing. So I clicked on a link, they harvested my credentials, and then the Nigerian prince took my InfosecPat brand. So 5 years ago, it was now 2020, during the pandemic, I was studying for something called the PCNSE, Palo Alto Network Security System Engineer, whatever the PCNSE stands for now, forgot. And then it was like 3 of my friends, and like we would make videos like, hey, John, you're really good at site-to-site VPNs, and I suck at site-to-site, but I'm really good at static routing. So we make videos for each other where we suck. So we're like, oh, John, you should do it this way because I'm the master at this, and you teach me what you're the master at. And then like a friend Kenny was like, dude, like you should throw this on YouTube. Another fun fact: I never watched a YouTube video before 5 years ago. I always thought YouTube was for music, right? So if you had a YouTube video on YouTube channel prior to 5 years ago, I never watched you, right? Because I didn't know about YouTube. Um, I was very different than a lot of IT people. I only did IT as my job. I did my thing, but outside of work, I did other things, and I'll keep that private, right? Um, so yeah, that's pretty much how I started my YouTube channel. I started uploading videos on my first video. If you go back, my first video ever was how to install Palo Alto firewall in VMware Workstation. And because that's what I had to teach to my friends, I'm like, I had to go get this image from a torrent site because, and get all the little images to get into GNS3. So if you know about Cisco Modeling Labs or EVE-NG or these kind of platforms, for Cisco, you have to pay for, you have to pay a license to download the ISO files or the bin files or whatever files you need. But obviously, they're all on the torrent sites. And I'd speak openly about this because growing up with nothing, we had to do what we got to do. I didn't have thousands of dollars to go spend on a, Cisco Modeling Labs or whatever. I think it was like $200, but it was more than free, right? So if we can get it for free, why not? So yeah, and that's how it started. That's how it started. I'll stop there and let you ask any questions, but that's how my journey started.
No, it's good. It's great. I mean, I think that, we all come from different places, you know, uh, and I think it's an inspiring story. It's, listen, one of the things that's always been really confusing to me, and I don't know why it's confusing to me,
Mm-hmm.
but there's this idea in big corporations that you can map out someone's career, right? That you can
Mm-hmm.
do career progression and say, this is what your career is going to be like. And there's a lot of effort put into these programs. And, young people kind of want to know. There's a certain class of young people that just want to know how their career is going to progress, right? They need to know what they need to be doing, almost like they're playing World of Warcraft or something that you can just grind through and figure out how to get to level 1, level 10, level 30, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen that in practice. Your story sounds way it's different,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also it just kind of unfolded and opportunities came up and then you took advantage of opportunities
Yes,
and
sir.
um based on that you move years and advanced and something else happened and you were working on something else and then there was another pivot and like how you got to YouTube. And those that seems natural to me, right? It seems natural that, you're going to experience things and you're going to find something that's of interest to you. And then you're going to go down that path and that path's going to take you, years to progress on. And then there's going to be something else that you become interested in. And then you kind of continue your career.
Yes, sir.
And I like it that um, definitely sounds rough from where you started. It's a
Mm-hmm.
rough place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's great that you had family to, help you in Florida and,
Mm-hmm.
stop you from moving to California.
Yeah,
Where are you now?
I'm in Florida.
Okay, you're
I'm
still
in
in
Florida.
Florida.
I'm in Orlando. Yep.
Okay. And and yeah, so I think that's the way, I mean, my career kind of unfolded as well. I didn't have the same origin story that you had. Um, but I didn't know what I was going to be doing
Mm-hmm.
coming out of college or coming out of high school, right? And then deciding to go to college. And then it took me, it took me wow. I graduated high school in '89 and got right into college, right? Right into that summer, getting into it. I had already had a computer for several years by that time, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and but then I didn't finish getting my undergraduate degree till 2010. It took me um, another 11, 20 years to finish my
Yeah.
undergraduate degree. Now
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of things. I mean, I did IT myself. That's where I started my career as well as on IT. I very similar, started with just building hardware and then get into help desk and then moved up into engineering roles at different companies and stuff like that. And then, but, cybersecurity also kind of hit me in the face with, with, well, it was, I was doing work for the Navy, and I'd been doing IT work for a long time, but then I was doing this work for the Navy, and they wanted me to secure the system, and I didn't know what they were talking about. And
Yeah.
and this is 2003,
Yep.
and they wanted me to secure the system, and I didn't know what they were talking about. I had to do a lot of reading to figure out what they wanted me to do. And then I was traveling around at the same time and had a machine that I put on the internet and opened up SSH on the internet so that I could get to that system so I could continue doing my work, because it was like a Sun Unix box. It was really big and heavy, and I couldn't just move it around wherever I was going. So I put it on the internet so I could continue working on my little projects that I had to go do. And it got hacked,
Mm.
and because of all of those things that I'd done to secure it, I actually had logs and everything else that I needed so that I could to see what was going on, why I had the biggest Star Wars FTP server on the planet. It probably wasn't, but um, but I could go through and figure out that the control that I missed was I didn't change the Oracle default user password from Oracle to Oracle something else, right?
Yep.
Just change it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what hooked me, was like, oh, I got hacked and I have this information that I can actually do an investigation, and I could kind of see how those things came together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could then I was hooked, right? Then I was
Mm-hmm.
actually hooked in cyber, right? Hooked on security.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had talked to me when I was a high school student, or just graduating high school, I wouldn't have been able to tell you anything about that journey. And I wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
been able to tell you that, hey, 20 years from now or 25 years from now, I'll be talking to InfosecPat about, his journey. I would not have been able
Absolutely.
to do that. And I think that what's good about that is that, you know, that we don't know where our passions are going to lie, what's going to give us fulfillment. And so
Mm-hmm.
we're always kind of looking for that fulfillment. And I think you know, it's, in a lot of cases, I think you have to let that journey unfold, because if you think of work as a 9 to 5 job and it's there to pay the bills and you're not finding fulfillment in it, I think it's super hard to kind of keep going, keep at it, keep, keep going through that grind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, do you feel like you're grinding right now, or do you feel like you're having some fulfillment?
Fine. Yeah. So now in 2025, so I was a director of pen testing services and director of offensive security for 7 years, and I'm doing that now, and I still pen test. And then I thought, you know, at the end of the day, we all, like you said, unfold our own journey. I'm not going to compare myself to John or TCM or John Hammond or anyone out there. I'm going down my own path, right?
Mhm.
And that's one mistake I think a lot of people make. They're like, oh, Pat has 100 and whatever, something thousand subscribers. He's famous. Or I can say, oh, John Hammond has 2 million subscribers. He's famous. Oh, this guy has 6 million bucks in the bank. He's rich or whatever. Like, if you go down that route, you're gonna be depressed. You're gonna be depressed, right?
Mhm.
And thank God, knock on wood, like I never felt like since I was a kid, right? I never felt like I had to compare myself, because I think I learned early on, like I hated it. Something I really hated is like growing up, like both my parents, my grandma and my biological mother, they passed away when I was super young, and it's like, oh, poor Patrick. I hated that pity party. You know what I mean? It really, really bothered me. So I really grew up quick, and I was like, I just need to make, I don't have, if I'm getting in trouble or in the world, meaning in trouble, like financial trouble or whatever, I can't go home to be like, hey, like I'm not going home to anyone. So it's all on me. Right. So now in 2025, I take care of my father. I bought my uncle a house. Like there's things that I never thought I would, like, you asked me even 15 years ago, no way, Pat's going to be whatever, just chilling in the hood. You know what I mean? Or 20 years ago, it's like, this is what, this is, I was told I was going to be amount to nothing. Right. And now I'm probably the richest one out of all my friends. Um, so it's like, you never know where your life is going to go. So let me get back on track. My ADD is kicking in. So now in 2025, I was like, okay, like we're doing all this for people, meaning pen testing or security, or and you make your salary and you make your living. But I thought I had an epiphany about a year and a half ago, but I was always a I keep it PG, a punk or scared to do my own thing, right? Because it's like, man, like, we default to comfort. At least me. I'm not going to speak on anyone. I default to comfort, meaning like if I have my job, I have my quote unquote 9 to 5, I get my paycheck, I know my bills are getting paid. Anything extra, if I do a course, if I do a YouTube video, I do a sponsor, that's just extra, right? Um, so now, if you see the sign behind me, I started a company called ISP Security, which is InfosecPat. Um, and I had an epiphany. I'm like, hey, man, like in myself, I really, this is the God honest truth. I talked to myself in the mirror about 3 weeks ago. I was like, hey, Pat, like, stop being a P, you know, stop being a punk. But P is the another word. But I was
Yeah.
like, stop being a punk. And I was like, and I have it written down, you know, Pat, don't be a P, and do it. And I was like, I needed to get the cojones to like, okay, I need to just try it, right? I need to go get an LLC. I need to go get this whole stuff and do my own thing, because at the end of the day, we're making a company. Say, for example, your pen test is $10,000, and you're doing, 10 a month. That's $100,000 that you're making for a company, not yourself, and you still get your $3,000 check. See what I'm saying? So I'm like, I was trying to move my head. I'm like, I don't want to die or get older because I'm 40 now. Like, I don't want to be 60 or 80. Like, man, I should have just done that, and see, God only knows what would have happened. Right. And I'm not, if it fails, I think it's going to be successful, but like, God forbid it did go south. I can go get another pen testing job. I can go pen test. I can manage a team. I have that skill. But if I don't do my passion, I know I'll regret it one day. So to circle around, do a Ron Robin, it's like, do what you're passionate, do what your heart tells you, and just, sky's the limit. So
I agree. I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, I think that that I mean, even like you said, I mean, you have skills, you have that safety net, right? So
mhm,
going out there and taking doing it for yourself, I think is great. I mean, I definitely have had my own companies in the past, and I
mhm,
really enjoyed it. And whether it succeeds or fails, you're going to learn something,
exactly.
right? And if you have to take that job and get that safety net built back up so that you can try it again.
Exactly.
It's you're going to learn something. I mean, I think I think some of the I was thinking about that this morning about my own company, right? And how there were things that I was doing back then that were a little bit ahead of time, right?
Mhm,
Companies weren't really ready for it. And in some places I just didn't have any experience, and I went back and got a master's degree and learned learned more about business, and figured out, wow, this is a place where I failed, this is where I failed, I could have done this better. But there were a
mhm,
lot of things that I learned or I learned in my MBA that I had already experienced, so I could actually apply like my knowledge against what it was. And I was like, yeah, I actually did that pretty well. And so I could then kind of score myself. And, and I feel the same way. I mean, I think that, what I'm 55, and I definitely don't feel like, I only have 10 years left of my, life. And
God forbid. Yeah.
well, I'm saying that, well, yeah, God forbid, but I'm saying like my working life, right? Um,
Yeah.
I can't imagine not working ever. So,
Mhm,
I mean, I have, decades to look for that next opportunity and figure out like, hey, how am I going to, do better as well? So, no, good
mhm.
luck. Good luck on the new company.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah. And right now it's starting out as a side gig. You know what I mean? Like, I still
Good.
have my full time, and I won't. I have a price line that I need to make X amount per month to even survive for my daughter, my family, my
Sure.
house, blah blah blah. And that's what I just want to put that out there. Like, don't be scared to just start something on the side. And even if you want to start with branding, be your, like, my brand was InfosecPat, right? Like, this is the brand, ISP, and then it's like, literally, like, I was like, oh, I tried an MSP about, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that. 'Cause my daughter's 10, about 13 years ago. I was like, and it was PDG IT Solutions, which is Patrick David Gorman. I always go for initials. I don't know why, but so I was like, and I was making like eight or $9,000 a month, and I was like, this is pretty cool on top of my full time. Like I never went. Remember, I'm the P word, right? I never went like full time on my own because of that. That's the safety net, like John was saying. And but I think now I'm at the point in my career, yeah, like once that picks up, I'm going to alleviate my full time. And it's not only about the money for me. I'm at the point in my life like I don't want to raise my hand and say, "Can I go to the bathroom?" Meaning like, "Oh,
Yeah.
can I take a PTO day?" No, I don't want to. Like, I don't feel like I'm in that position anymore that I really have to. Like with my knowledge and my where I'm at in life, right? Because I have friends like, man, like I have to ask to go to DEF CON. I'm telling you I'm going to DEF CON. I'm not asking. Right.
Right. Right. Right.
So like that's, more of that stuff started, in my late 30s. I was like, man, I don't want to be like a gopher for my whole life, like a slave to the system, a slave to someone else. I want to be doing it my own. Even if I'm not a millionaire, even if I'm breaking even what I'm making now, but I'm doing it on my own, I'll be way happier.
Yeah, you'll be. I mean, it's that feeling of freedom and mastery and
Yes, sir.
control of your own destiny. And yeah, I know. I I remember the feeling. It's a good feeling.
Hmm. Yeah. Be like your podcast, right? Be fearless, right? You
Be
just be
fearless.
fearless.
Be fearless. Step out there. I mean, everything's going to be okay.
Yes, sir.
Everything's going to be okay. I mean, I think that's another thing. I think people worry about in people. There's a lot of stuff to worry about, right? In
Hmm.
the world, um and sometimes there's a lot of things to worry about in the world, and I think that one of the things that people worry about is job security.
Hmm.
And the best remedy for security is probably experience and expertise, right? Building expertise, right? Be an expert, right? Figure out what it is that you have to do to uh, own your what it is that you do, right? What
Hmm.
it could be anything. You might be a pen tester, you might be the best vulnerability management guy, you might be the best SOC analyst, right? And be that expert. And if you're that expert, then if you need to go find a job or you need to transition from one job to another job, you're gonna be safe. If you're not the expert, now you're competing with all the other people that are not experts, right? That's a harder place to be, right?
Yep.
And I think the other part is just having a community. You have a huge community. You have 100,000 plus, YouTube subscribers. You have a big community, right?
Hmm.
And um, but people need to invest in their own communities wherever they are, right?
Hmm.
So and I think one of the what I've seen as the um, I'll say the professional professionalization of the cybersecurity path
Yes, sir.
is that you have a lot of people that go and they get cybersecurity degrees, and then they come from a good school and they go and they get that cybersecurity job, and they bring no passion to the position. And
Hmm.
then they don't so they're not investing in themselves and their career path because it's a 9 to 5. And then they don't know anyone in the community. They never go to any gatherings. They never go to DEF CON. They never go to, that, the happy
B-side.
hours,
Yeah.
B-sides, whatever these things are that you could go and integrate yourself into the cybersecurity community.
Hmm.
And that's a hard place to be in job security as well, right?
Absolutely.
Because then you don't know anyone. No one knows you.
Hmm.
And I'll be honest, I think every job I've had since 1993 has been because of someone I know.
Absolutely. Likewise.
It hasn't been because I sent in my resume and through LinkedIn, whatever, and then all of a sudden I'm just, a job, the job landed in my lap. I
Hmm.
think community and who it is that you work with, and this is the advice that I give my son.
Yep.
He's 26 now. He's in cyber as well,
Nice.
and the advice that I give him was, you know, um, which I wish someone to give me this advice too, is, be flexible, be friendly, you know,
Hmm.
you know, understand what your job is and who it is that you're, delivering your whatever you're doing it for somebody else, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
always part of a process.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you understand like how to deliver good quality products to your customer, whoever your customer may be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, people are going to remember you.
Yep.
And as they go through their career journeys and their career paths, and they are going to recognize something that they need, and they're going to think about you as that person that can fill that position. And
Yep.
then that opportunity is just going to materialize for you just because of those that work that you did in the past,
Yep.
right? And so, but if no one knows you and you come to your job as a humdrum and and you just don't invest in yourself and you're not doing anything to kind of be passionate about the career choice that you made, then I think it's hard for people to recognize you as someone that they can rely on in the future.
Exactly. And just to sprinkle some sprinkles on top. And the community is super small, right? So the word will get out there if you are you know, a bad person. I don't know what words I can use. Sometimes I have to bite my tongue, but like, don't be an a-hole, right?
Yep.
Just make sure, like, because I've gotten it. I've gotten such bad, like messages or like, and I'll tell you a story, and it's interesting. I say the story because there's like you was telling your son, be a good person, be nice, like give back to the community, and you have the trolls, right? And the trolls, like they're just internet warriors or keyboard warriors, but I don't come from that kind of life, right? Like there's a saying that you can take me out the hood, but you can't take the hood out of me,
Right.
right? So I still have that. I grew up with mobsters. I grew up seeing people getting the. I seen crazy stuff growing up, right? So like, thank God I'm not there, because I could have been involved with stuff that I'm thankful that I'm not. But it's like this is still ingrained in me, so I still have that. It's like a pit bull, right? I have an American bully. She's the sweetest thing, but if she has that moment, she can do some damage, right? If she wants. So it's the same kind of thing. So it's like, don't be an a-hole because you will be found, right? And that happened to me. Like, going back to my growing up, like reading was a big thing for me. Like reading was really, really hard, right? I had a really hard time learning how to read and write. And because I never went to school, like the reasons I never went to school, I would cut school. I had no guidance. And, I was just doing like a try hack me room on a live stream. And someone said, I read like I have Down syndrome, right? So it's like, this hit me hard. Like you can punch me in the face and I probably won't even hurt as
Mhm.
bad. Like this struck a nerve. And I told myself, I want to find him. I want to find him and I want to hurt him, you know? And because it's like, and it happened, and I'll leave the rest out. And I ended up catching this kid and I hurt him, right? And it's just like, don't be an a-hole. Like, be nice to people because you never know who you're going to run into. And for that next opportunity, like John was saying, like now that person, I put him on blast because he was really, really like an a-hole. And hopefully, I think he learned his lesson because I'm not a small dude and I'm not a nerd. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be, hey, I'm not one of them, right? Like,
Right.
and I say that I'm not saying nerds are bad, but I'm the kind of person that what I say I'm gonna do,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I'm not gonna be like, oh, if I see you, I'm gonna punch you in the mouth. No, if I see you, I'm gonna break your face. Like that's the way I grew up, and that's the way it is, And
Yeah, and
dude,
I think
this
that
sucks.
that's a really good point. Is that especially in online communities,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know anything about it's kind of like walking around in public. You don't actually know anything about the people that are around you. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know. You don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what their skills are. You don't know if
Mm-hmm.
they're a martial artist or,
Exactly.
or a gun-toting kind of guy, or
Yeah.
you just don't know. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's the only reason why society like survives is because we have laws and that kind of stuff. But um, but but you just don't know
Mm-hmm.
who these people are. And just on that note of because there's been many times that I've worked with, a-holes, and I
Mm-hmm.
definitely there'll be people that know me that think I'm an a-hole too.
Mm-hmm.
Part of being a job of a CISO.
Yep.
But the um the the thing about it is like people do end up, and the community is small, and then
Hmm.
people do end up reaching out and asking um, for, hey, would you hire this guy? They'll ask for a referral or something, and it's not because you put them on. They put me on the referral. It's just that they know that I worked with somebody, and they're
Hmm.
going to ask me questions about it. And um, you got to think about what you're doing in the workplace, and like again, be positive, understand your role, invest in yourself, do good for other people, and your career will go in the direction that you want to go. If you take the opposite approach, then you're going to have stagnation in your career, right?
Hmm.
So anyway, so I want to talk about a couple different things, right? One
Yep.
is that your first ever cyber talk, or one of them, was how to get out of the hood, and we've talked about that. But is there
Hmm.
any other anything you want to tell us about that video?
So yeah, it was a talk at a local meetup. Um, so yeah, it was just like getting out the hood. Like I said, I grew up in a neighborhood, and I've seen people get stabbed, shot, slit up, cut
Mhm.
up. I've seen it all. Everything that you can imagine. I've seen it. If you ever watched The Bronx Tale or something like that, one of those Guinea movies, that was pretty much the neighborhoods that I grew up in. So, and if most people don't know what a Guinea is, like an Italian neighborhood.
Mm.
Um, so, like growing up, like I said, I was going to be amount to nothing. You're just going to be probably a drug dealer like your father. All these things, like you're going to be a
Mhm.
part of this community or this journey. And I was like, no, I'm not. You know what I mean? So, no, I'm not. So yeah, we touched on it in the beginning. Um, I came down to Florida. Like I said, I came down to Florida, and I just wanted to have the talk to the community. Like, no matter what color you are, where you come from, what you're about, you can do it. And I really say that because if I can do it, when I say anyone can do it, like, I have friends that, they went through some stuff, and I tell them what I went through. Like, we could touch on some stuff after the show, but like really crazy things, like really like crazy stuff. And I go into detail with those things because I want people to know, like, you're not alone. You know what I mean? If you think you're alone, like, you're not, right? Like, you're not. And I never did drugs. I never been into drinking. I never been into that stuff. But I loved violence. Like, I grew up around violence, and I loved it. Like, that was a drug for me. When I see someone on the floor bleeding, that was like, oh man,
Wow.
that was a rush. And I don't say this because I'm happy about that. And that's just what I grew up in. It was the norm.
Mhm, mhm.
And it hurts like saying it because, I try to suppress that life. You know what I mean? I try to suppress it
Well,
and not
I
really
mean,
like,
definitely when you have kids and you're married, you
yep.
have your own family and stuff, that this is
Yes, sir.
not what you want for your
Yeah,
family, right?
exactly.
Right, that this is not what you want for your own family. But I think
Yeah,
that, whenever you're talking about this, what one of the things that I think about is that you're the hero of your own journey,
absolutely.
and
Mm,
I love what you said about you're not alone. Other people are having this experience, and they're able to break that pattern.
hmm.
Right. I think one of the greatest things about being in the United States and being an American is that, because I still do believe in the American dream, and I think that might be corny to some people, but,
You're right.
but I do think that there's so much opportunity that's here,
Hmm.
and I'll tell you a little bit, my mother's from South America, from Peru. My uncles came from Peru, and, he came here as an adult, didn't speak any English at all, started putting together his own life. And he didn't even know he wasn't supposed to be successful. He had no idea that he was not
Hmm.
supposed to be successful, and he had a great, successful business, built his own business. He's actually, in the Miami area, has his own little ranch with horses, and does his own
Nice.
little weird kind of stuff
De la
that he does
finca.
with,
La
huh?
finca.
Yeah,
Like the
what does
little,
he do? He does this thing with show horses for like Peruvian style, like trotting and
hmm.
stuff like that. And I don't even know what it is, but it's like weird, rich Peruvian people kind of stupid things.
Love it.
But he had no idea that he wasn't supposed to be successful. You know, he had
Mm-hmm.
his own journey. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
we put a lot of limitations on ourselves
Mm-hmm.
about, you know, where we come from and, you know, what our families are doing or where they came from. And those can be limiters. If you let your mind be trapped by your, you know, the experience of your parents and the experience of the people around you, and you don't find your own way out,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, that would be a very constraining life. But I do
Mm-hmm.
think that you know, like I said, I feel every time you tell me about this, and I feel like you're the hero of your own journey. You've been the hero of your own journey.
Yes, sir.
You've mapped out a way out. Was it
Mm-hmm.
planned? No,
No.
it's never planned, right?
Yeah.
But you made it, right? And now
Mm-hmm.
you have an opportunity to make your you know, your dad's life better, your uncle's life better, your family's life better,
Yes, sir.
and you know, you did it. You know,
Yeah.
you're a representation of that, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
a great story. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I just thank God, man. Like, yeah, it was loco growing up. It
well,
was,
so look, something showed up in front of you, and you thought, you know what, that sounds like a good path. You know,
yep.
that sounded like a better path than what I'm on, and you took it. You know,
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? Like even going from New York to Florida. You know, I used to live on Roosevelt Island, right? So
Okay.
you know, I didn't go into the same areas of Queens that you were growing up in, for
Yeah,
sure, right?
yeah.
But it's I've definitely driven through those areas, right? And so, uh, I can't even imagine that journey. But you know, the opportunity came. You moved to Florida, started
Hmm.
taking, you know, started trying to figure out like, hey, what was going to make you happy, and you moved. You did what
Yeah,
you needed to do, right? So
absolutely. Yeah, and
let's
I'm
talk
just
about let's talk
go ahead.
about the YouTube journey a little bit. Um, and I think that man, I think it's impressive that you have over 100,000 subscribers. And I know that you know there's you know other people that have way more subscribers, and there's definitely. But I mean, I think that milestone of 100,000 subscribers is a pretty big one.
Hmm.
And you know, it's and I think you know it's no joke that you had to put some sort of effort into building that subscribership and you know also working. So I kind of want to understand like how do you balance your business needs, like your work life with you know you have two work lives. You have your work life that's your day to day, and you have your work life that's your social media business, I'll say,
Hmm.
and then you
Yep.
have your family life and your um,
The hobbies and all that fun stuff.
hobbies. You have a lot of things that you're trying to balance. How do you balance those needs with the social impact that you're making?
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I appreciate the kind words. But yeah, so YouTube, yeah, the 100,000 subscriber milestone was massive. I think consistency really, really, and I think because I keep it real, like when you watch a video, like obviously I'm on your show, right? So I want to respect your audience. But like if you come on a Thirsty Thursday, I don't have a filter. I want to say what's on my mind. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you say. That's just me, right? As a person. And I think that resonates because I get a lot of comments like, yo, son, like you keep it real. Like from any kind of like area of life, like walks of life, like, yo, you don't give a, what, you know? And I'm like, no, because I don't care. Like I'm doing this because if you don't like it, keep it moving, son. Like keep walking. So yeah, and then I think like when I was making videos, it was just like I wanted to simplify it because when I was coming up, like for an example, I like to use this example because it's very true. Bloodhound. So if those folks don't know what Bloodhound is something that enumerates Active Directory so you can see the insights of it's like Google Maps of AD. So I remember, when I first installed Kali and I did my first box of AD, I think was Forest on Hack the Box. And then I was going through it and I was stuck, right? So I was stuck. And then I watched a YouTube video on a walkthrough where I was stuck. And they're like, oh, now open up Bloodhound. And I typed in Bloodhound in the terminal. I'm like, Bloodhound's not even installed. How the hell did he do it? So that gap of how to get Bloodhound installed and then how to use Bloodhound. So that's where I was started like connecting the dots for folks. Like when they come to me, I want to teach it or I want to convey it just like I would try to understand it. And going back to my thing, like I grew up with a learning disability. So it's like I need to make this thing the KISS method, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's what really resonate with a lot of folks because like I love so many content creators. I watch some of their videos. I'm like, I have no idea how did you even get there. Even today, I love John Hammond, right? John's a friend. He's just not only an internet friend, like, and I sometimes I was just like, oh, he has this interview, this video on I don't know, malware analysis, and then he just like starts doing his thing. But then, how did he get there, right? So
Right. Right.
that's the gap because if I want to learn that, John, like, how do I do it from here to how do I get to where you are in the sense of in that video? So that's where I was trying to connect the dots. When not that's Bloodhound, that was just one example, but like other stuff, I'm like, oh, if I talk about phishing, oh, like we need to get this phishing. But if I don't teach you how about Go Fish and how to set up a template or a campaign,
Right. Right.
then it doesn't connect those dots.
Yeah,
So
and I think that that's important too, because I think that what I think, I hope, hopefully, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you,
no,
but I
go
think
no,
it's
go go go
important.
go.
It's important because I think that one of the failures I see in security operations centers is that it's almost like they don't really understand that there's an adversary on the other side. They don't know
Mm-hmm.
that it's for me, it's always spy versus spy, right? And it's
Big
like
one.
this, this poker game
Mm-hmm.
that's happening. And a lot of analysts don't really know what's happening on the other side. So what did it have to do? And it's like I always get in these conversations with people where um, especially when they're applying like the attack framework or something, some framework, they
Mm-hmm.
don't really know where they are because they don't
Mm-hmm.
know what had to happen before it. So it's like, how are you going to defend this if you don't know what the steps are?
Exactly.
And if you don't know, if you don't know what the how the attack is set up, because it doesn't just happen that
Yep.
they send you a phishing email and there's a link and that link goes somewhere. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like someone had to think that they're going to put up some infrastructure that's going to be the place where that link goes. And they had to set up DNS, and they had to do this, and they had to
A
do all these
C2
kind of things.
framework and connecting and have a droplet and connect back to your
Yeah, that's
yep.
right. They had to have all the stuff kind of set up, and
Yes.
then they execute the attack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they execute the phishing email, right? And then you get to the phishing email and you click the link and it goes and it, you know, downloads something, does whatever it's going to do, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And it's like if you don't really know how that happens, it's really hard to think, how do I defend against this? Or given my tool set on the blue side, on the blue team side, it's really hard to figure out, like, well, where could I interject? Where could I intercept? Where could I contain this problem? Right?
Yep.
If you don't know what's happening on the other side, it's really hard to kind of figure out
Exactly.
how you
No,
defend.
exactly.
Yeah,
No,
and
and,
I
and,
think
and 1,000% right. And yeah, I feel the same way when I'm making my videos. So I try to connect those dots, right? And like, for example, building AD, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, I installed AD today. But I want to go, okay, we're going to install Active Directory. We're going to go to tools. We're going to go to Active Directory domain services. And we're going to hit next. We're going to have to set all this stuff up. Because I talked to two people four people in the last two conferences, and they never set up AD in their life,
right.
but they're attacking it. I'm like, how do you do that? Like, how are you attacking it when you don't even know what exactly is going on?
Yep.
And because they see these videos, like, oh, you need a pen test AD, you need to do this, and they go through the videos. Maybe I'm not saying they don't know what they're doing. You can run a tool, you can enumerate, you can do all this stuff, but what are you really attacking? It's like I'm throwing balls and rocks at your house, but how is that foundation really stood
Yeah.
up? I can break through the
Know your
block.
enemy.
Exactly.
Know your
Exactly.
enemy. I mean, I think I think that kind of comes from your IT background, though.
Yes,
For
exactly.
sure. I mean, I was an IT guy first as well, and I think that all the stuff that I learned in IT actually helped me in my cyber career,
1,000%.
right? And
1,000%.
and again, it goes back to, you got to be technically proficient to understand how to attack it and how to defend it. If you know what it is, right? And because invariably, even on the attack side,
Hmm.
um, people are going to patch their systems, and then
Absolutely.
that's going to change the behavior of the system that you're attacking. And are you going to be able to pivot? Are you be able to think about like, how do you get to the next step? How do you progress your attack if
Hmm.
you don't know how that system operates? How do you
Exactly.
identify the gaps in that system, the weaknesses in that system, or the weaknesses in the people that are using that system that allows you to move your attack forward? And then
Hmm.
conversely, on the defense side, it's like, this is what the patch did. This is what attackers are. What's the next gap that the attacker is going to take advantage of? What's the most
Hmm.
likely to happen, right? Because
Yep.
it's a path of least resistance game, right? And,
Absolutely. Yep.
so, but yeah, I think it's super interesting about the connecting the dots, because a lot of times people just kind of drop you in and they're showing you what they're going to do, but they didn't tell you how you got there, why this is going to work, what's going to happen when they patch it or whatever, and it's lots of stuff to kind of figure out. It's a very, very complex landscape, I think.
Yeah. And one thing I can add on that, like one thing, like someone told me a long time ago is, and his name was Keith Balker. He's from CBT Nuggets, and he said, Pat, like if you can teach this to your daughter, you really know it, right? So if you don't like, if you feel like you don't know it very thoroughly or very in depth, teach it to someone you know. Like, like my fiance is a chiropractor, right? She has no idea what I do, right? Like she's like, oh, he's just some matrix shit, Like I'm like, no, it's a little more in depth. But if I say, hey, like this is what Active Directory is, and at the end I'm like, okay, what is Active Directory? She'll probably say, oh, it's a group of I don't know things that you manage. So she got a little piece of it, and
Right.
she never seen Active Directory in her life. So if you have that like conversation with your partner, with a friend, or whatever, like you're learning about SQL injections, and like, oh man, I learned about this cool thing called SQL injections, and now I'm going to teach you about it and just talk about it. And oh, when I open up Burstway, I can do this, and then whatever you're doing, right? So like, and then ask at the end, what did you learn? What I taught you, like what I just what I just told you, what did you get out of it? And that feedback will tell you how much you know it.
Right. Right.
And you can go to someone that really knows it, like, yo, dude, like I talked to John about my friend John about SQL injections. This is what I taught him. Like, and then he'll be like, oh, damn, son, like, you know what you're doing. Like, no, Pat, you a dumbass.
Yeah.
Like this was totally off. So yeah, I just think
It's one of
I
the
think
best
it's,
ways to learn things. I think this is called like the Feynman technique. I don't know if you, but it's like it's a technique. It's like you learn something, and the way you learn it, you absorb knowledge, and then you go and you teach it to someone else. And I think that's why it was powerful for you and your group of buddies at the beginning of your YouTube journey, that you
yep.
were like taking the time to explain it to somebody else in a way
Hmm.
that they could hopefully learn.
Yes,
That's
sir.
just such a great way to learn, and you're doing things. You're learning about it because you're trying to explain it, but also you're also bringing content to the world that allows other people to kind of learn as well. So I think it's great.
Exactly.
But no, I think it's good, good, good. So what's the one misconception about cybersecurity that you find yourself addressing repeatedly with viewers? Is there something that happens and you're just like,
In what way? And
a
what?
misconception? I mean, like, um, like, um, like one of the things that I always hear that I think is a fallacy is that um, attackers, defenders have to be right many, many, many times. An attacker only has to be right once,
Once.
right?
Yeah.
And I think you would tell me, with your experience, that you were like, no, no, it's not just like I just launch an attack and that shit happens, right?
Yeah.
Bleep this out,
Yeah.
SquareX. But but it's not like that at all. It's
Exactly.
there's the way that I explain it to my teams has been um um is that there's two parts of it. There's attack evolution, right? The attacks evolve, and then
Hmm.
there's attack progression, right? And
Hmm.
so just simply in the kill chain, you if you don't set up your system so that you can, if you don't weaponize, if you don't put it together so that you have some place that you can start controlling, you don't have your own infrastructure, then it's really hard for you to kind of progress your attack. You can send all the phishing emails that you want in the world, but attack's never going to progress because the infrastructure doesn't work, right?
Exactly.
So but when I send you the phishing email, you might click it,
Hmm.
It didn't speak to you. So let me change the phishing email. Let me change the attachments. Let me change the links. And I'm trying to bypass, two systems, your technical controls and your the human that's the target, right? I have two things to bypass to get to that point.
Yeah.
And I might have to send that email many, many different ways, different types, so I can bypass the technical control of the email filters and the everything else that happens before it gets to your system. And then even when you're on your system, you have EDR that might be blocking any new domains that are under 30 days old.
Yep.
So I have that technical control. And I don't know anything about your system that you have. So if I send you an Acrobat, maybe you don't have Acrobat, but a PDF is not the way to go. Maybe it's an Excel spreadsheet that I need to attach. So
Hmm.
there's lots of things that need to happen, but that's one of those misconceptions I think that is present, that attacker only has to be right once, but the defender has to be right many times, just because it just simplifies it. Are there any other misconceptions that that are you see
Yeah.
repeatedly?
I think that's a good one. I like that one. And whoops, sorry. And I think one would be I don't want since you talked about something technical, I want to go into salary, right? Because I think people
Okay.
think like, oh, they're going to be because I started teaching at a place called Next Gen T, which is next generation training. And one thing, and I'm very honest, like I said in the beginning, like I don't like to mislead people. So something that was misled with them is like, oh, if you get out of this program in 6 months, you're going to make a buku bucks, 100,000 bucks plus, right? So if you working at Pasquale's Pizzeria yesterday, but today you got in this program in 6 months, you're not going to make $100,000, right? That's a given. It took me to hit the 100K, for an example, and I know times are different today, whatever, than even 10 years ago. Like it took me from when I started IT, I was making $35,000. Then I went to $45,000. And when I had my first network engineer with a CCNP, I had like $58,000. And then like get to 105,000, I think it took me 7 years, right, to get that $100,000 mark. And when people say, "Oh, you're going to get 100 plus thousand, 100,000 plus in 60 days and guaranteed you're going to land a SOC position in Adam Mars or whatever," I'm like, that's definitely misleading. When you
Absolutely.
get and even pen testing, and like people like, oh, pen test. No, blue teamers make more than us. You're sorry to tell you, but if you're listening to this, blue teamers make more than pen testers. Um, so, because at the end of the day, as a pen tester, you think about this, a lot of people don't think about this. As a pen tester, all right, you can work as an internal red teamer for a big corporation, but like me, I have a little pen testing firm, right? So it's a consulting firm that we do pen testing for our clients. So as a pen tester, you're working for a smaller firm than if you were a blue teamer at, a big hospital that you're defending, or a security engineer. So there's more involved as a blue teamer, like John was saying. You have to have your defense in place. You have to use net extra hot, CTI, was like recorded future. These are all tools I know. And like you're ingesting data, and you have to get data connectors from Sentinel or Logarithm or whatever SIM solution, and CrowdStrike and whatever EDR you're correlating your data to your SIM. There's so much. In us, we just pen test, right?
Mhm.
And so as a blue teamer, maybe you can make that $100,000 plus, but with some years of experience, you'll probably get there sooner than 7 years, I'm sure. But if you go back to quote unquote the fundamentals, and before you even jump into a workshop or not a workshop, a boot camp or whatever, get those fundamentals. And there's so many channels, including my own. Like I show
Yeah.
you how to set up a server. I teach you how to do networking and subnetting and basic stuff. So if you're a pen tester and you get out of this, you're learning all about these Kali Linux and all this stuff. But I was like, oh, here's a /29. I want you. How many IPs is that? I don't know. I didn't learn about that. So these are so critical, and understanding the infrastructure in those, going back to that, like that's my background is IT, right? Before I got into cyber. So I understand all that. Like I remember when I did an engagement, and I was on an engagement. It was pretty funny. It was about 5 years. No, it was longer than that. 7 years ago, and they were running an ESXi host, which is VMware, and all of their servers were running 7.0. So 7.0 was their version, but this one specific host was running 5.5. The reason being because they couldn't upgrade it because it was an older host, but they didn't want to migrate it for whatever reason, whatever. So there's something called ILO. ILO is for people to remote, or the system administrators to
Yeah,
remote into.
integrated lights out.
Yep, exactly. And it's on HP. And iDRAC, I believe, is on Dell.
Sure.
So, but this was an HP server. So there was a vulnerability that I was able to exploit on that. And when I did the report, people were like, why would you even go to the hypervisor? It's like, but if you were pen testing, you're like, oh, let me just run my tools for Active Directory. They would have skipped that, right?
Absolutely.
So this is going back to those fundamentals and understanding what your infrastructure is, because you'll be a better hacker, you'll be a better blue teamer. Because if you have an old system that's running a legacy OS or a legacy application, then you can be like, hey guys, let's talk to the infrastructure team because they're using this. Let's just make sure they're aware of that or whatever. But having those fundamentals is super critical.
Yeah, I think that the path, the talk. There's a lot of people that when we talk about cyber, most of the time, what we're seeing on TV is the hacker side, the pen tester side, right? And I think that definitely has a lot of draw to it. It feels it's exciting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the work for pen testers and red teamers is a different like cadence of work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you plan an attack and you say, here's your objective and this kind of stuff. And you have your red team and they go out and do it. It's like every time I've had a red team, it's like, what are our objectives going to be for the year? And then we have like setup of like months to go set up like how we're going to go test it. Then I have to go get the red team stuff approved. And then we're going to let people know what we're doing, what our objectives are. And that's like slow moving work. And pen test, like normally you do it like once a year or twice a year for your
Compliance.
certification. It's
Yep.
your compliance activities that you're doing. And it's like that frequency just isn't there. On the
Mm-hmm.
blue team, like you said, it's like you're always having stuff to look at and patch and update, and the attacks change, and then you have to to uh, update your rule books, and your changes in the how you're going to detect this kind of threat on the sim.
Yes,
Hopefully
sir.
you have all this kind of stuff that happens, and it's like day to day grind kind of work, right?
Yeah.
So you know definitely there's also a supply and demand kind of curve. There's a lot of people that want to get into pen testing, but that's pretty much, there's probably more pen testers out there than there is pen testing work, right? So
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
as opposed to blue teaming, it just seems like the work just keeps increasing.
Yep.
So I think it's part of the reason why the money is a little bit different,
Yep.
even though it's much more exciting to be on the attack side.
Yeah.
But okay, very very interesting, very interesting. But I do think that's a misconception as well, that you're just going to break into cyber and all of a sudden you're just making buku dollars, even though you just came from a pizzeria. That is not a realistic expectation. But
Exactly.
I know that one too, right? So I've seen that one many times as well.
Yeah. And then
Um,
you have like the students at the end, like, oh, I got out. I send my resume to 6,000 places, but everyone wants to pay me 40,000.
yeah,
And
get
then we
in,
look like the
start,
bozos.
start. Yeah,
Yeah.
take it, start. I mean, I
Exactly.
think that when my son got out of college, he was feeling guilty because I was, kept giving him money. I was like, no, get your first job. The most
Yep.
important thing is your first job,
Yep.
right? Because I mean, that's going to kind of set you up. Because if you have, if he was like, oh, I'm going to go get a job at as a waiter at a hotel or something. I'm like, don't do it. Now you have all this experience at a hotel and waiter, and then you're going to try to get an IT job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be, you don't have any experience there.
Exactly.
It's better if you have the opportunity for you to do projects or do something that you're, on your own,
Yep.
to build up some experiences that you could take into that job interview than it would be to take a different job. But the idea that you're just going to get out of school, get out of a certification program, and that you're going to go land, I think that's a big misconception. Big
Yeah.
misconception.
Yep. I think so
Your
too.
your opportunity is better, right? But it's still not going to be 100,000 first job out, more than likely.
Nope.
So I'm going to shift to a cybersecurity landscape a little bit, and we're seeing that professionals are spending a lot of time in the browser today. From your offensive security point of view, what makes browsers an attractive target?
Ooh, that's a good one. Cookies, sessions. That's probably the most attractive, right? Compromising the session. And yeah, that's pretty much what I go after.
Right. Yeah. So to kind of take control of identity,
Exactly.
and be able to reuse those sessions and everything else to get to other places. I'm sure. Right. It's
Yep.
got to move laterally some.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
And
like seeing
so,
if you could dump their passwords if they're using, a lot of people use like Google's password manager, right? If we can dump that, we can get and you can use applications like Beef, and you can dump everything. And if we're able to dump that, it'll be a hooray for us.
yeah.
So
I mean, I do like it that they've built password managers into the products.
yeah,
Right. I like that because I think that makes it more likely that you're going to have some diversity in your passwords that you're using for different sites.
yes,
Yeah, so I like that. But but like you're saying, like once you get control of the browser and you have that, you have your, whether that's through like a browser extension, some other way of taking control of the DOM,
hmm
with just like injected code in the system. Or we had some research around what we called sync jacking, right, where we kind of
okay,
trick people into um, clicking a link that then replicates their profile back to us. So then we have like the password manager, all that data, and every time they add a new password, it
yeah,
syncs back to us, right? So there's those kinds of attacks, and I think that um, I think you probably would agree with this too. But when I look at like the Mandiant reports and the CrowdStrike reports, and they talk about, or even Verizon's DBIR, and they talk about the kinds of incidents that they have and how the initial attack vector was.
hmm
I see so many attacks that traverse the browser.
yep,
You know what I mean? So meaning like you send a phishing email and then you went to the browser to go to a web page,
exactly,
and then it's like might look like DocuSign or Microsoft or whatever, SharePoint, and then people are putting their credentials in, and then now you've captured their credentials as an attacker, and then you
yep,
can reuse them, right? And but yeah, I was thinking like 60% of the attacks, that 60% of the incidents started with something that happened in the browser.
hmm
Do you see that in your work as well? Are you using the browser as that kind of gateway device?
It all depends on if it's a red team engagement, yes, right?
Mm.
But for a traditional pen test, I don't.
Right.
Me personally, like for if I'm doing
Like
a pen test,
if you're doing the outside of a like a website, an e-commerce site or something.
exactly, exactly. But like for an internal, you just trying to see what's the internal aspect. External, it all depends. So if it's an external, remember we going back to like rules of engagement, a scope,
Yep.
and 99% of the people that do external penetration tests don't really do the whole OSINT aspect, you know? So, like, now I'm starting to learn, or I've known this, but like, I'm starting to really realize OSINT, that's why OSINT investigation is a totally different service than an external pen test.
Mm.
Yeah, you can like integrate the two. Like, oh, like I did an external pen test on these 5 IPs, and we have a landing page or a login page, excuse me, on one of the IPs, and the login page is like an I don't know, a Sonic Wall VPN, something, right? And like, oh, we can try to leverage this. We could do some OSINT. Okay, who's in the company? Well, let's go out to LinkedIn. Let's go. We have the naming convention. Let's go to hunter.io and see their naming convention of their emails. Let's see some users. And then we can go to Intellex to see if there's any, or Dhash to see if there's any passwords that have been leaked with that. That's when we get a little outside, but it all depends on what's in scope, right?
Yeah,
Can we
yeah.
spray a portal? Are we allowed to? Some people say, no, don't spray. Just tell me what, because like you said, these one or two a year, just because they want to check mark against their compliance, right? They don't really want to get hacked.
Right, right.
A lot of companies don't really want you to like exploit, and that's another misconception. Like people like, oh, we have we have we have to hack everyone. They go and hack the box and we exploit the system. And a real pen test, you're not really like doing crazy things, right? You just it's more educating the client that, hey, these are exposed, and yeah, we can can exploit and do all this. Yeah, maybe like if we get domain admin, we can add a user and like, oh, we added, hacker man, and check in your
Yeah,
AD and see if hacker man is there. But it's not like the movies. Like you're not, doing RCEs and uploading malware on servers on a real pen test, right? If you're a malicious person and you're going out there looking for craziness, yeah, that's you, boo boo. But on a
yeah.
real engagement, that's not how it is. I
Right.
think
And
that's one of the
I think that for me, like a lot of those, like when you start talking about like passwords and Dhash and stuff and account takeovers, right? There's kind
Mhm.
of some aspect of account takeover that's there. And then, but yeah, if you can find like credentials that have been leaked, right?
Mhm.
You know, like I'll have to look at Dhash. That sounds pretty interesting. But
Yeah,
yeah, but I think that if you can find credentials that have been leaked, then you can, it's a good way of progressing your attack, getting
absolutely.
past the VPNs and those kinds of things, or or whatever. And but those are one of those things that I would classify as a browser problem, right?
Exactly.
The fact that you were able to use a known hacked known the fact that you were able to use a compromise known compromised credentials or known compromised password to create a new account, that's definitely one of those things that you had to traverse the browser to kind of get to, right? You got to,
Exactly.
right. So any of those kinds of attacks that that anyways, I'm gonna try to get you back over to red teaming. Okay. But on a red team engagement, right, where you're trying to, well, I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It's also scopes and stuff like that and
Mhm.
whatever, right? But you might
Y
have an objective to you might have an objective to show that your KYC information is not protected well, right?
Yeah.
Or because I mean, those are kind of red team things that I had in a mobile network operator, right? It's like, hey, is my KYC data protected, right? And then it's if that's what you're trying to do, then you're looking for things like getting onto the network through a VPN or something else that's being left on the system. But then now you need credentials to kind of get through that system so that you can kind of progress your attack and get into the internal space. Uh,
Yep.
More red teaming than pen testing, though, right?
Yeah. So the main difference between, because a lot of people use the same, oh, I'm a red teamer, but they never used the T2 in their life, right? They just been
Right.
using Kali Linux. So the main difference is like, pen test, you have a 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, it all depends. Your objective is to just find as many vulnerabilities, report on them, and give a pretty report at the end and just, hey, like remediate this. This is what we found. A red team ops is more operational. We have a team. That's why it's called a red team. It's not a single person. So now we have things. We have to set up a C2 infrastructure. We have to set up like maybe a phishing campaign with Evil Jinx or Go Fish. And now we have to have landing pages. So now we can phish these credentials without get. So the main difference is like a pen test. I can just throw everything at it. It can be noisy. They know they
Right.
need it. Red team, you have to be more stealthy, right? More
Mhm.
hidden. We have to create ways to bypass your EDR. You have to create ways to try to, be sneaky, be off the radar. And that's, at least on the red team engagements that I've done, that's how we do it. it's being more little more. The main thing is be more stealthy than a pen test. You
All
can be
right.
noisy.
Right. So in a lot of sense, on a red team engagement, you're setting up different infrastructure so that you can move on your objective, right? And
Yep.
then, but you are trying to bypass. You're trying to bypass just like a hacker would. You're trying to bypass EDR tools.
Yep.
You're trying to bypass, proxy servers and
Yep.
secure web gateways, those kinds of activities. So you're going to want to try to use domains that are well known if you can.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
to get so that your C2 infrastructure isn't just taken down just because it's on a brand new domain. And
Yeah.
then for your C2 infrastructure, right, you're trying to make sure that people can get to it, right, and would not have EDR messing
Exactly.
around, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
So red team, it takes more time. Like sometimes it can take, if you sign a deal with me today to get that infrastructure up, it can take maybe a month, to get everything going. So it's not like, like a pen test. I just need to spin up a Kali machine in AWS so I can see if I can call, run a responder and call back over the internet,
right,
or, whatever the case may be. But, red teaming, you definitely have to put more effort into setting
sure,
that up. Yep.
right, and then you don't want it to just fall apart just because EDR and proxy servers exist, right? So, so when you're doing it, when you're getting through this activity, right? We talked about getting session tokens and cache credentials out of a browser. There's also infrastructure. Do you do a lot of like trying to capture credentials as well, or
Yes. Yes. If I'm on like an internal assessment, we'll run something called responder
Hmm,
when we start. If it's assumed breach, then that's a different story,
different? Yep.
right? But if it's like, okay, it's uncredentialed or whatever, like we don't have any creds, um, unauthenticated. So now with that, we have to get creds. We have to figure out a way that we can get into the systems. So, always on an internal, you'll start out with a responder that's going to listen for LLMNR or any kind of SMB traffic or whatever that tries to um, point back to your attack machine, Kali, whatever you're using, and then see if we can capture a hash. Because that's broadcasting on that
Right.
network. So when we get a hash, we could try to crack that hash. If we can crack the hash, we have a username and password then, and then we can start passing that around the network, see what's up, or see if we're with netexec, you can say, okay, it's as simple as sometimes like, okay, I want to run netexec SMB against the network, say 10.10.10.10 or 10.10 whatever ./0/24, and then okay. And I'm a victim of this. Remember, I worked in IT, right? I never thought people can see what I put in a description in AD, right? I
Yeah.
remember my service accounts. I used to put the password in there.
Oh
Now
my
make
god. Yeah.
yeah, a description from my SQL, my SQL database server, my SA account is, the company name, the year, and exclamation point. So come to find out, that still happens today with all the security awareness and all these IT people. Like, because
Mhm.
now I think IT now is a little more. You have more security integrated with IT. Like back then, IT was IT. We didn't know jack about security. Maybe we knew about semantic endpoint protection (SCP). That was as security as I got, 15 years ago. So, and you'll still be surprised. You just do netexec SMB space subnet space, dash dash users, and you'll start enumerating the users if it's available, and you'll
Wow.
see it out there. And I've
Wow.
seen the users. That's how we gather the users list. And then sometimes you'll get lucky and someone puts a password in the description, and you'll be surprised. 2025, it still happens.
Yeah. No,
And
you're saying it. I'm not surprised.
yeah.
So well, let's talk a little bit about you actively mentor people trying to break into cybersecurity.
Hmm.
What's the most common barrier you see people facing when trying to enter the field, and what advice do you give them?
I think it's money, and that's what I made that whole thing.
Yeah.
Getting at the hood. Um, so money, because people come to me and say, You know, like I started doing mentoring for free. Like I started for free. And then, some people really appreciate it. They show up for the 20, 30 minutes. I'm like, hey, man, like, what do you want to do? I can give you a little path. We can resume in 30 days and we can see where you're at. And I put together a whole program, like a whole little mentoring program for 90 days. And I took that, like, I took what I learned at Next Gen T from what they were offering, and I was like, put it into my own little thing. I was like, I can do this and I can help people for free. And the people that appreciate it is lovely. But then, when you have, if you get a course for free, how many of you complete that course? Probably zero, right? I can guarantee I can put $1,000 on it. You're probably never going to finish that course from soup to nuts, right? But if you pay for that course, guaranteed you're probably going to do it, right? So when I was, I have a daughter, I have a family. So like if I dedicate 30 minutes at 7 o'clock at night and you don't show up, you're on the list, right? You're
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the, you know? So it's like, okay, John's on the list, Paul's on the list, Chris is on the list, whatever. And then I'm like, after like a dozen of those, I was like, you know what? Screw this. Like, I'm going to put a paywall. If you want to talk, then that's where, going back to, I think that's the barrier, because it's like, and if someone comes to me and say, hey, I really want to do this, I can't pay. What I always tell them is like, if you complete this, like if they give me you can always give a sob story, right?
yeah,
Um, but if there's like someone that's like, oh, I do have the $100, but I have to eat this week. And I'm like, all right, dude, like what you can do is, this is a retainer. You give me the $100. Will you complete this? I'll Zelle, if they're in the US, I'll Zelle the money back to you. Right. I don't need your
right.
money. It's just more so you don't waste my time. My time is more than money, you know?
Yep, yep,
So that's why I think the barrier is like, oh, like I don't have the money to train. I don't have the money to get into the field. There's a lot of free resources out there. There's Hack the Box, there's Try Hack Me, there's paid subscriptions for those platforms. There's also, free YouTube University, right? You can learn a lot of stuff on YouTube that you can leverage, but it's free. So you're never going to really watch it unless like you really like, oh, I need to set up Bloodhound. Let me go Google or YouTube, oh, how to set up Bloodhound,
yeah,
and then they'll probably watch that one video. But as far as like getting play, like I have so many playlists on my channel. It's like crazy. Like I actually put together a structured course for free on my YouTube, and I think I have 4 or 5 of them, on there. And
sorry about that.
no, you're fine. And
No,
yeah,
no,
so
no, but
like leverage the free stuff out there.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that you're saying something important here, because I see this, in corporate America a lot, that people are always trying to, they hey, they want training,
Mm-hmm.
right? They want training, and they want the company to provide training,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great if we have but we have a budget, right? And we
Of
have
course.
so much money that we can do training. And I'm often surprised that people don't take advantage of YouTube. I mean, I learned so much on YouTube, and
Me too.
on just available content that's there. It's insane how much content there is available, and there's not probably content for everything that I want to learn, but man, there's a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that folks do believe that there is a barrier. Money is a barrier to learning. But yeah, YouTube has a lot of content, and all you have to do is watch their commercials, you know,
Yeah.
every once in a while to get through it. And I think that's by far a good way. And it's really nice that you have playlists to help people kind of get up to speed on things, because I think that's one of the harder things as well, is putting together curriculum. So that's
Mhm.
a good resource for everyone. And then finally, tell us about a student whose success story particularly stands out to you. What did they do that made the difference?
Ooh. Um, all right. Yeah. So it was on Next Gen T. There was one specific student that he went through my cohort, and I knew he was different. I knew he was different in a sense of I want to try to make this politically correct. I guess I'm disabled, so I can pretty much say that I have an IEP, and I'm whatever. I went through the ESE course in students, and I'm like that. So he was definitely like autistic, right? He was definitely autistic, and his dream was to work. I don't want to put the company out there because I don't want. Then we know who we're talking about. He wanted to work at a certain company that he envied, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, hey man, like I know people at that company, right? I know people at that company, and what all you have to do is just, let's get through the cohort, let's get you a certificate of completion, get your security plus, your network plus, and do like a hands-on cert. I'll let you pick because I don't want to say, oh, PMPT or OSCP or whatever, because maybe you don't like OffSec, maybe you don't like TCM, maybe you don't like Hack the Box or Try Hack. Like you pick whatever company you want to work with, whatever training resonates with you for their cert, and get that hands on. He literally, like, I don't know how he did it, but he got Network Plus, Security Plus, and then he ended up getting PMPT in 3.5 weeks.
Wow. Wow, that's very
Yeah,
impressive.
like less than a month. He's like, okay, like really excited. Okay, I got all this. This is it. Pat, can you hook me up? And I was like, holy moly, dude! Like you did it. Okay, so he's like, I really want to work at this company. I really want to work at this company. I was like, all right, let me see if there's any openings. He says, I just want to work for free. I just want to have that the logo on on me,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And I was like, all right, bet. Like, let me see what I can do. And then I reached out to someone I know over there, and I was like, hey, like, there's a student that just maybe wants to intern there, and he's just really passionate about your company, and I think he would be a good fit, and I can vouch for him because. And I told him, like, he's autistic. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to put him in front of clients. He's just more of the back office kind of guy, right? And and this was in 2019 when he graduated the cohort, and now he's still there, and now he's their head of something. He's the head of
Right.
something there,
Right, right.
and he always tells me, dude, like I wouldn't be here without you. Like, and I used to help him with communication skills. I'm like, I was not the best at that. I had to learn how to not use the F bomb every other word. That was something that I had to practice. That didn't come natural for me. If you hear my dad, if I call my dad right now, he'll be like, hey Pat, what the F you doing?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's just the norm, and I had to reprogram my brain, like, to not say that word, because not everyone likes that word. But for me, it's like just another word. It's like describing, blah, 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 like, and I, that was a big success story because I brought this kid from the cohort that I thought he was just like a special kid that, and he was a kid. He was like 17 years old, right? He was a young kid. And then now he's like 24 or whatever he is, and he's still there. And he's like, I want to retire here. I'm like, do you, boo boo? Whatever you want to do, bro. Like,
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And
No,
he
that's a great
reps
story.
that company to the death of him, you know. And yeah, and that was a big success because it's like someone that probably thought maybe his family thought he would just like live at home all the time and just like not. I don't want to say not amount to because you're super smart, but when you're autistic, when you're on the spectrum, people look at you different, right? Because I have two friends that are on the spectrum, super, super smart. One I played soccer with, and he doesn't really say a lot of words, but he's super smart. And I've seen like Publix, here they have like Publix is like their big supermarket, and they normally hire special needs kids. And even they denied him, right? And it's like, and then now he's working at Walmart because obviously they have their limitations of where they can work because depending
Sure.
on where you are in the spectrum. But like that was definitely a big success story for me when I saw, and the fact that he still keeps in touch because I was just his trainer during his cohort, and that was a big one.
No, it's something to be proud of. Good,
Hmm.
good job. You're making a difference.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yep.
Well, Pat, hey, I really enjoyed talking to you today. Appreciate you um, letting us know about your story and about how you're making an impact.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, John. And for everyone out there, if they want to reach out, I'm just a click away. InfosecPat pretty much on every single platform. And yeah, That's pretty much it.